Welcome everyone to the podcast. Thank you so much for joining me as always. Today I'm very excited to dive into a very hot topic right now, which is all about solar flares, geomagnetic storms. And I have been getting a lot of questions about this on many different levels, from is this a conspiracy? Is this something that HAARP is creating? Do solar flares and solar storms actually create any evidential changes besides the auroras, all of this kind of stuff? I love the questions, first of all, because what that means is you are hungry for knowledge to understand, which means that you care. And I think that's a fantastic thing. So I will share what I know, and some of what I'm going to share is coming from a cosmic consciousness session that I did in 2022 about solar flares and why they were happening and why it would be pertinent to this time. So it's really neat to be able to go back into that information that Spirit provided, as well as some scientific research, because for those of you that join me in Cosmic Consciousness Circle, you'll know that I always bring in tangible, researched pieces to help validate the things that Spirit is saying. And I am definitely someone who believes not everything can be proven by science, especially the science that we have available right now. But it helps give our brain something to hold on to when we're trying to open up to higher concepts. So I always like to sort of bridge those two worlds where I can. And so let's dive into that in talking about solar flares and geomagnetic storms and why we're seeing this happening now. So first of all, one of the main reasons that if we start with the science, one of the main reasons we're seeing a lot more solar flares, X-class solar flares, geomagnetic storms, and all of that is because we are moving into the peak energy of the sun's cycle. So that's called the solar cycle, and the sun has a cycle that runs about every 11 years. And so every 11 years, the sun's magnetic field goes through this solar cycle in which the magnetic field kind of flips completely, they say, or the north and the south pole of the sun's energy, in essence, flips. Some people call this the waxing and waning cycles of the sun, just like we see that waxing and waning cycle of the moon every month. But what's really interesting is the sun has become much more active than places or groups like NASA predicted it would be. Now, the sun basically is measured by counting the number of sunspots on its surface, and this number has been documented daily since 1755, which is so incredibly cool. And so within this time, there are noticeable phases they call of solar minimums and solar maximums. And so solar minimums are when there are less sunspots active, and solar maximums are when there are lots of sunspots active. And we are now currently in the sun cycle number 25. This cycle started back in 2019, and scientists are saying it's predicted to peak sometime between November 2024 and March 2026, with the absolute peak time being around July 2025. So what's interesting is solar cycle 24, scientists said was very mild, and it peaked in April in 2014 with 114 sunspots, where the average was about 179. They're predicting that our peak now could be sometime or somewhere between 210 and 260 sunspots. Scientists were predicting that cycle 25, which we are in now, would be a bit below average, but it absolutely is not. And we are really ramping into the energy of the phase of the solar maximum right now. So basically what that means is we will be seeing more solar flares, bigger solar flares, a rapid succession of solar flares, and it's actually quite normal based on the sun cycles. So we're reaching a peak point. And if people don't know that, people right away see this increase in solar flares and think, it's something out of character, but it's actually not within the cycles that have been monitored for a long time. However, we are noticing a higher intensity of solar flares happening right now, and that's stepping it up into X-class level solar flares. And we're seeing some of the highest X-class levels ever recorded. So in that respect, there is a higher intensity than what is predicted, but that's where it really wraps into aligning with the spiritual progression of ascension and awakening right now. And what's really neat is this awakening is part of how the universe is stepping in on our behalf. So we have humans stepping in and doing their part and awakening their consciousness on behalf of the greater collective, right? All of you that are opening your mind, changing narratives, releasing old energies, stepping into a new energy, and so on. Humans are doing it. We have our galactic level community, which I've talked about as well in cosmic consciousness, that are stepping in, stepping forward, making themselves known to many of you as your guides, connecting and communicating different information to help us progress forward into that galactic level of awakening and awareness. But then we also have the energetics of the galaxy at play too, and the sun is a big part of that. And part of the sun's higher intensity of its solar flares is every time the sun emits a solar flare, that's this burst of energy in consciousness. And so what's really interesting is scientifically, each solar flare gives a burst of charged particles into space, and then those particles essentially slam into the magnetosphere of our planet, which causes the auroras, right? Like that's the undulation of the energy hitting the electromagnetic field, and so we can see that. Now, what the thing is those energies, those particles, are very high vibratory energies, and that's containing within it solar consciousness energy. And if you've been following me for a while, you know that I channeled the 3 guides of the light. And for those of you that aren't familiar with the 3 guides of the light, these are beautiful light beings that came to me in 2020, and they are of light consciousness. They are not embodied beings. They showed themselves to me first as 3 embodied beings, but they said that's not what we are. We showed you that so your brain could make sense of us, but we are light. We are light consciousness. And so the sun and all of the suns and the stars contain this light consciousness. And when we connect into the light, we are infused with higher energy frequencies, which help us open up our consciousness. So when the sun kind of burps out its solar flare, it sends these charged particles of rapid frequency onto our planet, which we can see affecting the magnetosphere of our Earth, but it's also affecting our auras as well. Just as the Earth's electromagnetic energy undulates, so does ours, our aura does. And we interact with that energy. Some of us will feel really tired, some will feel worn out, some feel super energized. Like, it is meant to clear energetic circuits and upgrade your frequency, energetically speaking. And so what's really interesting is with this energy ramping up on its cycle, it's right on time that as humanity, we are stepping up yet another level, opening our consciousness and awakening to more, right? Like, we're really opening up to more. And if you think of how much has been transpiring, even in the beginning of this year until now, and how people are speaking up, speaking out, changing paradigms, narratives, all of that. And then you have these solar flares coming in. It's just helping to enlighten, adding light to energize our own beings, but also energize our consciousness. So that's how the universe is playing its part as well through these solar flares, which is just so incredibly cool. Now, what I find though is there's a lot of fear narratives being placed on this energy of these solar flares, and understandably so. One of the big fears that comes up a lot for people is the concept of the Great Solar Flash. And to be honest, several years ago, a potential for a Great Solar Flash, this massive sunburst that basically just fries the planet, was a potential timeline. There was a time where when I was channeling and tuning in, it was a timeline. I was also having dreams about it. It was tangible and real. And then it started to shift. And I remember when it came in and I was told that we moved a different timeline where that one was moved out of the way. The potential for a solar flash was moved out of our timeline trajectory. And so for the most part, that's not a concern of the great solar flash theory that is really moving around. From what my guides have said, is that's not in our timeline anymore, or in the variants of timelines available to us now. And the reason why is so many people have been awakening that we've created this higher benchmark of where our level of awakening is. Our collective human frequency is higher, therefore that great solar flash event is not needed, which is really, really neat. And so I think that's quite wonderful. And so when we recognize that, we can then take the energy of the auroras and really kind of take it in for what it is bringing up. Because those energies of enlightenment, the pieces that are lighting up our frequency with that high frequency solar consciousness energy, is lighting up whatever it is you need to see, to understand, to transmute, or to embrace both good and maybe not so good, right? Like maybe you have to embrace where your limitations are, or maybe you need to embrace where you are thriving and truly live in it. It will shine a light on those parts for you to bring them into your known reality and step up yet another level. Now, when people talk about electrical grids going off, GPS systems, satellites, all of that, that is a very valid repercussion of solar flares and solar energy and coronal mass ejections, which they call CMEs. That's a very valid thing. But again, I really want to separate that from the full fear narratives of that taking out and wiping out our entire planet, or wiping out the way in which our planet functions. It's not in the universe's best interest as a galaxy to create that level of chaos, global chaos on our planet. That would not help humanity move forward, and humanity is moving forward in a very good way collectively. I know we could look individually at different pockets of things going on in the world and think there's no way humanity is moving forward. And if our lens is focused on just those areas, in those areas, it is not moving forward. And I absolutely agree. When you pull the energy back, though, and you look at the collective energy, it actually is increasing. And what's really interesting is Spirit has talked a lot about how this year, 2024, would be a big year for our physical bodies coming online. I've talked a ton about this. And this is a part of it too, because these solar energies that come in with that really high frequency are attuning our body frequency to vibrate higher, to handle more consciousness too. So not only is it helping our kind of spirit-mind integration, but it's also significantly helping our physical body's capacity to hold a higher level of consciousness. So by you spending time outside, if you're able, in however you do your sun protection, of course. But if you spend some time consciously outside, meaning you're consciously connecting into the sun and like breathing in its nourishment, you will notice a big difference in your body, in your healing capacity, in your energy to calm and ground and all of that. Sitting in the sun is a beautiful way to actually ground your energy, but then like clarify your being, purge your being of dense, low frequency, because that energy of light is like pure consciousness. So something to consider. Another thing that's really interesting too is that these solar flares can also bring in this energy of like, how do I want to say this? Like higher love, higher compassion, higher thought. Because again, it's so high frequency that if you bring in that energy and you like imbibe it, is the word Spirit keeps saying to me, you will be working at such a higher level, which can be faster, more efficient, more deeply feeling, but like clearer in mind. Hold on, Spirit's wanting to say something. Yes, they're like, it really helps you expand the space within. So the space within your mind, as well as the space within your physical body, to create harmony and like balance within anything that's disharmonic. So again, if we look at like the mind, it helps the mind find calm and put everything on the table so that the mind can sift through it with greater ease. In the physical body, it helps the disharmony energies regulate themselves, which then allows the cells to do what they actually need to do instead of being kind of in this whirly chaos energy. So something really beautiful to think about with that. As well, when we have these solar flares that come in too, it can also create a lot of feelings of like either vertigo, spaciness, that foggy feeling, or fatigue. That is just simply the magnitude of energy at play. And so with that kind of energy, it's really worthwhile calming your body, resting your body where you need, and getting a lot of hydration. Hydration is such a key piece too to all of this. So to really help balance out those solar flares, bring in a lot of hydration to your body and rest where you need. I find what I like to do personally with the solar flare energy is I let it lead. So sometimes certain flares will come up and I feel just zonked, so tired. So I've learned not to fight it now, and I surrender into that. And sometimes that tired feeling is actually spirit wanting to communicate with me a whole bunch of stuff, and I might get a whole bunch of downloads. Other times that tired feeling will come in and I need to rest and recalibrate in the frequencies. And then there's other times where the solar flares are happening and I am just like so charged up. I have a lot of energy, and so then I take that as an opportunity to get a lot of things done. And it feels like the solar energy is just like fueling my being and my body. So really pay attention to your body and how it affects you, and just again really take away the fear narratives of it. Be very clear in your discernment. Ask yourself what feels right. When these solar flares come in and when you read other information about it, and even with what you're listening to on my podcast here, regardless of what I'm saying, feel into your discernment. Always, always. And something that I might say may not resonate for you right now. It may all resonate, it may not, and that's completely okay. Because the most important thing on our journey is to discover our soul's resonance. Because when we discover our soul's resonance, we then are moving in alignment with our soul blueprint. And there's more ease and grace in that. So with everything you read about this stuff, consider your discernment and what feels like a truth to you, and embrace it until it changes, or maybe it doesn't change. But really tune into your body, tune into yourself to see what these energies are doing for you, what they are highlighting, what kind of healing energy they're bringing in for you, maybe where they're showing you need to do a little bit more work, or whatever it may be. It's an opportunity for change, because I want to leave you with this. Just before I had my near-death experience in 2019, I was camping with my family. I was very unwell, but we went camping because I didn't want to ruin any experiences for the kids. So at one point I was having a nap in the tent, and this gust of wind came in, and Spirit said to me, "You need to wake up and remember these words. What was to be Avalon is now Aurora." And I was like, okay, got it. And they're like, no, you need to know, you need to write this down. What was to be Avalon is now Aurora. And I was like, yeah, okay, got it. Yeah. And they're like, no, you need to write this down. And I was like, I got it. What was to be Avalon is now Aurora. And I didn't understand what it meant at the time, but what I found out was Avalon was their term for the other side, which is why we named our company Avalon Spirit, spirit of the other side in the higher realms. But Aurora represented something changing on the planet, something changing in a material way, tangible way in this lifetime here for me at the time. The Aurora was that game time change of plan happening for me. And that was that I wasn't going to cross over anymore. I was going to be given the opportunity to choose, which I understood later, right? So one thing that really stands out for me with the auroras we're seeing and the magnitude of them is it really represents to me the massive changes happening on our planet and the recognition of the universe in that respect. And how that universal energy, that beautiful solar energy, is coming in really strong to help enlighten so many people, to help create the changes on our planet. And so in many ways, I see that as a beautiful answer from the universe through those bright, beautiful colors that we see. And to me, that's a really special thing. So whether that resonates as your truth or not is completely okay, but I just wanted to share the deeper meaning for me behind all of that, in hopes that maybe it'll be something that inspires you or helps you into a deeper understanding for your journey. So I will leave that with all of you. Thank you for your questions. Do keep them coming. I absolutely love it. It's so much fun. And I hope you have a beautiful rest of your week. And I will see you all next week.